It's such a disaster how one of the best characters in television history could fall off so hard. In the first 2 seasons of The Boys, Homelander was up there with one of the greatest villains in television history. And his bar is still so high that he may remain there even after they fumbled his character and the show with the more recent seasons. He's still miles above most of the characters on this show, but he had so much further to fall. His downfall started in season 3, and he hasn't recovered since then. He works so much better as the secondary antagonist. Homelander used to be the type of character where, when he entered a scene, it was electric. You were completely glued to the screen. But as I've been watching him in the later seasons, I've just found him really boring. The reason for that, in my opinion, is because of his dynamic with Vought. That's what made him so interesting in the first few seasons. Once they got rid of that, Homelander declined to where we're at in season 5, where the only character that's still left in the show that I find interesting is Butcher. So why was Homelander's dynamic with Vought so impactful? Well, let's look at how he was advertised to the world in The Boys in those early seasons.
All of them, even Homelander?
Homelander's the exception. He doesn't drink, doesn't smoke. Man's a saint.
Homelander was initially portrayed as a character archetype, not unlike Superman. An all-powerful god that's here to save the day and protect people against evil. But as we learn fairly quickly behind closed doors, he's nothing like that. He has no regard for human life, and everything about him is a carefully curated image created by Vought. That image is the only thing he cares about. He needs it to be loved, and that need is what's stopping him from giving into his darker impulses. He's the type of character that will do something objectively evil for the sake of getting better PR, than doing something to help people if there's a chance his reputation takes a hit. Nothing shows this off better than the Flight 37 sequence from season 1. For my money, this is the best scene in the entire series. The setup is that Homelander and Maeve fly onto a plane that's been hijacked by terrorists to take out said terrorists. But once Homelander realizes the plane is crashing and there's no way to save everyone, it's better for him to abandon ship and save no one. Not only did it establish the depths of Homelander's cynicism, but it was also a massive surprise to the audience. And well, the people aboard the plane as well. Even in the smaller moments, where people are walking up to Homelander and he threatens to laser them, even though they're going to die anyway. It was a completely shocking twist that played with our expectations, but also felt completely earned based on what we've established so far. It reinforced that soups are an allegory for celebrity, and how in the social media era, your image is more important than your actions. This dynamic becomes more complicated in season 2. In season 1, Homelander was loved by everyone. This is a mirror and commentary to how celebrities were perceived prior to the social media era. That is, there was a more uniform opinion on them. But that idea was challenged in season 2 with the introduction of Stormfront. Taking the opening scene from the 5th episode of season 2, which I'm sure you'll all remember from this meme. A video is leaked of Homelander accidentally killing a civilian on a foreign mission. Naturally, the public is outraged by this, and Homelander wants to address it publicly, whereas Vought and Stan Edgar want a carefully curated statement made. Homelander, however, doesn't listen, and directly addresses the public himself. This obviously goes terribly. So much so that Homelander imagines lasering the entire crowd for hating him. Hey, I'm probably going to talk about the finale when it comes out. So if that interests you and you like my opinion, please subscribe. And if you don't like my opinion, well then maybe you can make fun of my 5-part comedy crime miniseries called Midlands Mayhem, which you can watch all 5 episodes for free right now on midlandsmayhem.com. Anyway, back to the rant. This is where Stormfront comes in. Homelander learns that you can't have everyone love you, and you have to cater to certain demographics. After a media campaign, thanks to the help of Stormfront, certain sections love Homelander again. While this is a great commentary on how the landscape of celebrity has changed with social media, it also developed Homelander and Stormfront's relationship to become more intimate. This leads to Stormfront grooming Homelander to be the leader for her version of what she thinks the world should be, which Homelander nearly goes through with, if not for Stormfront's plan regarding the racial aspect of it. However, it implants the idea that he's superior to everyone, a belief he's always held, but it's now in the forefront of his mind, that the superior race are supes. Although this is just something he pretends to believe. Really, the idea is just to placate his own ego and his need for importance. This led into his arc in Season 3, which is where the problems will emerge. There's still some great Homelander scenes in this season, like Homelander's annual birthday save. He goes to save a suicidal person, but as he's doing so, Stormfront commits suicide because of the mangled state she's been in after the Season 2 finale. This significantly affects Homelander psychologically, making him give in to his darker instincts and become more vocal about his distaste for regular humans. How could a soup like her die and this human get to live? This leads Homelander to tell her to jump. This, along with being forced to share the spotlight of the Seven with Starlight, as she's been promoted to co-captain by Stan Edgar, causes him to take over Vought and oust Stan Edgar from the company. That decision is precisely where the downfall begins. All of the great scenes with Homelander play with his dynamic of what he wants and what the person controlling him wants. In Season 1, it was his dynamic with Madeline Stillwell, the surrogate mother figure. In Season 2, it was Stan Edgar and Stormfront manipulating him. And in Season 3, it was Stan again, until Homelander ousts him from the company. His core character conflict is a push and pull between what he wants and what is best for the company and his image. This is all bolstered by the fact that he has a severe dependency on the constant public adoration he's been getting as a front-facing figure. However, there has always been an understanding that while Homelander was a problem, if you took him out of the equation, another soup would just pop up to replace him. Homelander was a symptom, not the problem. And the real villain behind it all was Vought and their greed. Now Homelander is the head of the company, and he starts running it the way he wants. He shifts all the scandals onto Stan Edgar, and then later onto Starlight, after her livestream to the public at the end of the Herogasm episode. In the following episode, she exposes Homelander threatening to kill her. Then finally, at the end of the season, Homelander kills a protester who lobs a bottle of water at his son, and everybody cheers. This starts to feel like it's all building to an explosive change in the landscape of the boys. I mean, how couldn't it? Homelander is basically out in the open now, and the world has seen how evil and sadistic he is. So where does it go from there? Well, Season 4 doesn't really go anywhere. You would think that after all of those massive earth-shattering reveals to the public, that something would happen. But not really. There's a culture war going on between Starlighters and the people who support Homelander. Do they have a name? Home Teamers. That's actually pretty good. Anyway, we'll get to that dynamic in Season 5, and why it falls completely flat for me. But for now, let's talk about the Vought compound sequence from the 4th episode of Season 4. Homelander goes down to the underground compound where he was raised, and across 4.5-ish scenes, Homelander tortures and kills everyone there. Specifically, 3 older staff who he attached something traumatic to from his past. This is a sequence that has always perplexed me, and most clearly showed the downfall of Homelander as a character. But it was lauded online as a fantastic set of scenes. I'm not really sure why. Perhaps it's because of Anthony Starr's great performance, or that the general bar of Season 4 was so low that anything involving Homelander was considered great. These scenes don't have any of the elements that used to make Homelander interesting. It didn't really inform us of anything we didn't already know about Homelander's backstory. Sure, it gave us more specifics, but that didn't develop his character in any meaningful way. There's no surprise factor. I don't think anyone expected anything other than Homelander killing and torturing these people, and that's exactly what happened. There aren't any competing interest. He's just being sadistic, and it's not like we haven't seen that before. So I didn't learn anything more about Homelander here. The real low point of the entire sequence for me was with the director, Barbara. She tells Homelander that Vought engineered his need to be loved, with a team of the world's best psychologists. There was nothing stopping him from breaking out of there physically, but it was his need for adoration and approval that kept him there. And that's just so fucking stupid! One of the things that made Homelander so interesting was his internal emotional conflict and need for approval. That's been a core tenet of his character since Season 1, and it never needed further explanation. This scene is treated like it's a big reveal, but it's making previously known information less interesting. This feels like additional character context that didn't add to or develop his character in any way. It made something that was multi-layered and complex seem like it was due to one specific event from his past. His core conflict was a carefully curated image that Vought and his handlers wanted him to have versus who he actually is as a person, which is a deeply twisted individual that can only feel good if given enough love and adoration. Vought making that part of his personality intentionally designed takes what was once his most interesting trait that comes from an internal conflict and substitutes it for external programming. Before, you could see how someone like this could exist, and those traits felt so human. But now we know that VOD engineered this. It removes Homelander's agency as a character. At very best, it's making information we already know less interesting. At worst, it's destroying an internal versus external conflict that Homelander had before this scene. Maybe they were going for a commentary on child celebrities, who were engineered to be famous, and what that does to a person. But even with that incredibly generous interpretation, it doesn't execute it in a way that was any more interesting or added to what we already knew about Homelander. As the rest of Season 4 progresses, Homelander takes over the government by getting a president elected that's essentially his puppet. He captures some of the boys and begins rounding up Starlighters and putting them in freedom camps. Which brings us to Season 5, where the world of the boys is essentially a police state, and anyone who supports Starlight is carted off to a camp or killed. This dynamic really falls flat for me, mostly because we never see any Starlighters. I keep hearing from Annie that there's a B team doing good work. What the hell does that even mean? Homelander gets really upset about the memes people are making, and he wants to get all of them arrested. But what about the people worldwide making memes? Do they just not exist? He's known around every single place in the world, so surely they do. Did Homelander lose his mind so much that he forgot other countries exist? Nothing feels any different. This should literally be an international crisis, with the entire world seeing how America has delved into fascism. Does Homelander only give a shit about America? They half address this in the latest episode by saying that their international stocks are plummeting and they're planning on recalling all the international soups back to America. But that just creates more questions than answers. There's a complete lack of consequence for any action taken by Homelander. The entire world should completely hate him, with only a small subsection of people that are defending him. The Flight 37 video gets leaked at the start of the season, and no one cares! It's just dismissed as AI, and everything's back to normal. It's completely fucking ridiculous. Everything should be at a total boiling point, but everything's basically the same. There's a small sequence where it shows how people are afraid of him after the video leaks. I suppose that implies that the rest of the world is like that, and Starlighters are the exception, but I'm gonna go out on a limb here because we barely even seen the wider world. Homelander doesn't have anyone that he has to please, and he can get away with everything. And yet in the most recent episode, now it's V1 that he needs to do that. Why V1? It's only for the virus. He could just start killing people immediately if he wanted to. Homelander had a divine revelation from Madeline Stillwell telling him that he's a god, and Homelander tells his marketing team to reveal that to the world. They all debate how they're going to sell that to the public, because no one's going to believe it. But why not? Is it any more ridiculous than him murdering someone amongst a group of people and then everyone cheering? I don't think so. They've jumped the shark so many fucking times that the shark is 10 feet fucking under! Okay, so you might say that all of this is intentional, and their goal was to progress him as a character to get to the point where he's a pathetic man-child that always gets what he wants, and he'll get to that point and realize that even that won't make him happy. Yes, I see that, and that's probably what they were going for. But that doesn't mean that it's any more interesting than the core dynamic they originally had. When Homelander had the push and pull between his need for love and approval and his darker tendencies is when he was at his peak. Homelander was a symptom of the bigger problem that is VOD. The corporation and how the system is set up caused all of this, and it's not what the system has produced. As we progressed in the show, the focus is now on what the system has produced, and things will all be okay after Homelander is dealt with. And yes, I get it. Homelander is an allegory for Trump, but I think you can tell by my accent why I shouldn't have a fucking opinion on that. Also, Season 5 was written before the 2024 election results, so it's not a direct parallel to current events. We've progressed so quickly with Homelander getting out of control and getting everything he wants. He can do essentially anything, and he still doesn't do it! Also, there's been no greater victim of the show's plot armor than Homelander. You know what one of my favorite sequences from The Boys is? It's in Season 1, where the boys have Translucent captured, and Homelander is searching up and down trying to find them, and it's only a matter of time before he does. It feels like the boys are in genuine danger, and Homelander could come and kill them at any second. But as we progress in the show, every time Homelander could kill them, he just doesn't. Like Huey escaping in the vents in Season 4. Why doesn't he die here? It just makes your villain look completely incompetent. Or even in the 4th episode from Season 5. How does Homelander not hear all of them going apeshit? Homelander is supposed to be incredibly dangerous, but he keeps getting put in situations where it's clear that he isn't. How am I supposed to be terrified of a character if he doesn't kill anyone important? And yes, I know he, spoiler alert, killed A-Train in the opener of Season 5, but that felt more mechanical than anything else. A-Train is way too strong with his power, so they had to get rid of him for the sake of the rest of the series. I hate being this negative about The Boys, because it was genuinely a great series, and Homelander was one of the best characters on TV. But they removed his core character tension of what he wants versus what is best for his image. Once they removed it, they didn't have anything to replace it with. They just floundered around and did nothing with his character. It just felt like so much filler. They really forgot who the main villain of The Boys was, because it was never Homelander. How could it be, with a character that strong, you just run into all the problems I've listed? The real villain was Vought, and Homelander was just a head on a Hydra that once you cut it off, it would have been replaced by another. But now Homelander's the entire villain, and it generates far too many mechanical and story problems. What they did isn't even a totally bad idea, if they were willing to go as far as they should have and show real consequences. But you can't stretch that out over 16 episodes. They should have left this change for much, much later in the series. Maybe then, Homelander would still be terrifying.